Hi guys, welcome to Joshua's Tech Tips. So Ubiquiti has a lot of different options when it comes to setting up their Unifi controller. In my previous video, we took a look at some of these options. In this video, we'll be focusing on how to set up and host your Unifi controller on a cloud platform. So when I say cloud platform, this would refer to AWS, Azure, DigitalOcean, etc. In this demo, I'll be using DigitalOcean. However, the configuration will be similar for if you're using any of the other mentioned platforms as well. So this video would consist of two parts. First, I'll be showing you how to set up a VM in DigitalOcean. And second, I'll be showing you how to actually configure the Unifi controller. Also, if you're interested in using DigitalOcean, I have an affiliate link in the description below. By signing up with this link, you'll get $100 US in free credit. So be sure to capitalize and use that link if you're interested. So without further ado, let's get into the demo. So first off, we want to head over to DigitalOcean. Go ahead and log in if you already have an account. If not, go ahead and click the sign up button. So if you use my referral link in the video description, you actually get $100 in free credit. This is great if you don't want to pay. If you just probably want to experiment and follow along with the video, you could choose this option and get your free credit. There's several ways you could sign up for an account. Choose whichever way is best for you. Once you're finished signing up for an account, go ahead and click the sign in button. This will take you to your dashboard. So what you want to do next is go ahead and click the Droplets tab on the left hand corner. Right, a droplet is basically a VM, right, that will be created. So we go ahead and click create droplet. So this is basically a VM hosted on their data center, or quote unquote in the cloud. So here we could choose which image we'd like preloaded with our VM. I'm going to leave it as Ubuntu. And you could choose a different version if you choose to. I'm going to leave it as 22.04. Moving on, as we can see, there are different plans based on our requirements. Right? For our particular project, we don't necessarily need that much of requirements in terms of specs. Right? By default, they are configured with the premium NVMe SSD. This is not needed for this particular project. If we select regular with SSD, you'd see the prices went down significantly. Right? So either the one for $6 a month or $12 a month is more than sufficient for Unifi controller. Right? I'll go ahead and choose the one for $6 a month, since this would be more than sufficient for this project. So this basically allows us to choose the data center that is closest to us, right? I'm going to choose New York. By doing this, you'll have less latency when accessing the controller. For VPC network, I'm going to leave it as default, right? You could go ahead and do the same unless you have additional machines, in the data center that you wanted to communicate to. For authentication, there's SSH or password. By default, it's set to password. I'm going to leave it that way just for simplicity's sake. Right? Be sure to look at the password requirements, and you want to have something in line with those requirements, or else you will not be allowed to proceed. So my password looks good. Moving on, we have some additional options. We have to enable backups. This is for $9.60 a month. I don't need that. What I am going to choose though is monitoring. This comes free, right? So this basically allows me to monitor the status of my droplet. Right, moving on, we could choose a host name. So this basically makes it easier for you to identify the droplet in your dashboard. So if you have several droplets, you want to be able to distinguish them, right? So this basically allows you could give it whatever name is applicable, something that you'd be able to easily identify it by, right? And as I said, a droplet is basically just a virtual machine in their data center, or quote unquote cloud. So I'm going to click create droplet, and we want to give it a few seconds, let it do its thing here. And we can see that the droplet has been successfully created, and this is the public IP address that's associated with the droplet. right? So public IP address, this is what we'll use to actually access the Droplet and make whatever changes or manage our Unifi controller once we have set that up. I, however, have a domain name, and a domain name is much easier for me to remember. So I want to tie this IP address to my domain name. To do that, I go over to my domain hosting provider, which is GoDaddy. I select the DNS settings for the particular domain name, and I go ahead to add a new record. So guys, this step is completely optional. If you don't have a domain name, you could just skip this step. This is completely optional. So for record type, I'm going to choose a record since that's the type of DNS record I want to add. For name, you could add any name that's easy for you to identify or remember this controller by. Right, so I'm just going to enter demo controller. Right, and the value here, that's for the IP address. So this would be the public IP address that's associated with my Droplet. So I'm going to copy this IP address, head back over and paste the value there. Alright, looks like we're good. I'm going to add the record, give it a few seconds, and the record has been successfully created. Alright, so now I'm going to actually head back over to DigitalOcean. So what I want to do next is SSH into this VM, right, or this Droplet, whatever you want to call it, right? So to do that, I'm going to use PuTTY. However, you could use whatever tool you want to use, whatever terminal emulator you want to use. PuTTY is my go-to tool. So I'm going to open that, enter the IP address. I'm going to leave it on SSH and select open. The first time you try to connect, they should ask you if you want to proceed. Go ahead and click yes, right? And I'm going to enter the username. Guys, so the username would be root because we'll be entering as root. In other words, for Windows people, basically like an admin, super admin permissions in Linux, right? And I entered my password. So great, looks like we're connected to our Droplet, right? So what I like to do upon connecting to any Linux machine, right, that I'm using, first thing I want to do is do an apt update, right? And once that's finished, I'm going to do an apt upgrade, right? So what this basically does is basically updates and upgrades all your Linux packages and repositories, etc. So I always like to do that when I'm doing a new installation. Select yes for that, right? And I always like to do that when I'm doing a new installation. So you see the progress bar there. So I'm going to speed up this a little here. So next, once you get this prompt, go ahead and hit OK, enter. And once it comes here, you could go ahead and hit the tab key, right? And that will take you down to OK and hit enter again. Alright, so it looks like we're good to go. So I'm just going to clear all this mess off the screen right now by entering the clear command. Okay, great. So now that our system is updated, our Linux system is updated, I want to actually use a Unifi script that will help us to automate a lot of this tasks that we'll be doing, right? So there's a person by the name by Glenn R, right? He did a fabulous job by creating the script, so all credit goes to him. I'm going to actually leave a link for this tutorial in the video description as well for you to just follow along with, right? So he made it super simple, just a few steps, right? So we already did step 1 and 2 is basically covered. We are logged in as root, right, with sudo privileges. So what we want to do is copy 2A, right? Starting with that script, I want to paste it here and hit enter. So this script is really great, guys. It actually installs a lot of the dependencies and all those things we would normally manually have to do, right? So it looks like we're good here. So moving on, we're going to come to step number 3, right, to actually download the script with the version you want. So if you look at the end, it says the Unifi 6.5 point something controller, and we're all the way up to 7.1 or 7.2, I believe. right? But however, when he did this particular tutorial, it was only 6.5. So we have the option, we could replace the N here with the necessary version, the updated version, or better yet, he made it super simple by creating this one script that actually installs it to the latest version and takes all the guesswork out of it. So this one script, guys, is great, right? So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to come back over to my terminal. I'm going to paste it. Yes, so this script, you know, this easy install script, it's super helpful, guys, because actually building one of this, you know, from scratch. When I say from scratch, the manual way, there's a lot of different things that goes into it. You know, I actually tried to do that before coming across the script, and it was very tedious. You know, you had like MongoDB and a lot of different things that needed to be configured properly. But this script takes all the guesswork out of it. It basically automates everything through, you know, a wizard type interface. Right, so we can see it's creating a swap file right now. And they ask, do we want to keep the script? So yeah, I'm gonna ahead and keep it, you know. And what it does now, it actually checks our system. It does a app get command, update command again, right? And it asks us if we want to proceed with updating the system. I'm gonna go ahead and choose yes, right? And it's gonna basically do the app get upgrade command again, right? And remove any old files repositories that are no longer needed. So here now, as I said, you have to MongoDB Unifi is dependent on that, the controller, and goes and it goes ahead and it downloads that and installs it and configures that first, which I think is super helpful. OpenJDK, that's also another dependency, as well as the CA certificates. So I'm actually speeding up this video, guys, so if you see it's taking a little longer on your end, you know, that's fine. I just speed it up in the interest of time. So now it's actually installing the Unifi Network Controller application 7.2.92, right? Yours may be a different version depending on the time you're doing this. So it asked me if I wanted to keep the script as part of the source file list, source list, right? So I'm going to choose yes, right? So this is asking for the Unifi Easy Encrypt script. So I want to choose this. I'm going to select yes, because this is going to actually install a SSL certificate on our site itself, you know, to keep our controller protected. If you don't have a domain name like the step that I did, you could skip this if you want, if you're just using the IP address. Or if you choose not to do this, you could skip this step as well. However, I'm going to choose yes, because this basically adds an additional layer of protection while accessing the controller, since communication would be encrypted by using that SSL certificate. So here we have several different options. We have Let's Encrypt, which is free, right, and the recommended one. If we have a paid certificate, we could choose that option. We could restore certificates, etc. I'm going to choose option 1, which is Let's Encrypt. You know, I've been using Let's Encrypt for some of my other controllers and it works great, right? And it's free, you know, so no associated cost with this SSL certificate. So to do that, I'm going to choose option number 1, hit enter, and give it a few seconds to do its thing here. Alright, great. So now it should ask us about our time zone, right? So this actually has the incorrect time zone configured for me. So it asks me, is your time zone correct? So I'm going to choose no, it's not correct. This would allow me to change my time zone. So I'm just going to go up to America. And my time zone is Caracas. So I'm going to go all the way down till I see Caracas. Feel free to choose what's applicable to you. And I'm going to choose enter. and it asks me if I want to set my time zone. I'm going to choose yes. Right, and now it asks me what I want to do with my old certificates. So I will choose 1 as the default settings. Now it's asking me for my FQDN, right? So basically my domain name. So they ask me by default as example.domain. This is not my domain name. As we know, it's not the domain name, so I'm going to choose no and right. So I'm going to enter my domain name now. So if you remembered, I set this to demo controller.joshuastechtips.com. right? So this is the domain name that I'll be using to access my Unifi controller. So once I've entered that, enter, and it's going to go ahead and try to resolve this. Success, it was able to resolve it. So if they asked me if you wanted to add more, so no, just this one domain name I wanted to add. Right, and just reviewing the changes here, and if I wanted to apply the changes, and I'm going to go ahead and click yes. Right, so here we have the option to set up an email address for renewing the certificate. So yeah, I want to go ahead and do that, so I'll choose Y for yes, and you could go ahead now and enter your email address. I'm entering my joshuastechtips@gmail.com. So this is basically just let me know whenever the certificate needs to be renewed. And remember guys, I said this certificate and the domain name setup and stuff is completely optional. You could skip these steps if you like, and the Unifi controller would still work as needed. So it's just doing a bit of house cleaning here now, and we should be good to go. And great, our Unifi controller is active and running, right? And kudos again to Glenn. As I said, head over to his site and check it out. He has some great content there as well, right? And he is the creator of this particular script, which made it super simple for us to get this Unifi controller up and running. So now I should be able to access my Unifi controller using my domain name. So I'm going to copy this now and paste this into my browser. If all went well, we should be able to access our controller there. So I'm going to open it to a new tab, paste in the address there. Fingers crossed. Alright, great. So our Unifi controller is up and running and can be accessed via the domain name. So if we look at that little padlock on the left hand corner of the web browser there, that shows us that our SSL certificate, our free Let's Encrypt SSL certificate, has been installed. Right? If you click on that there, we can see that the connection is secure and the certificate is valid. So that's great to know as well. And here now, I'm just going to run through the actual Unifi wizard. Right, so this could be something, whatever is applicable for you. Again, you could name yours here. I'm just going to name it Demo Unifi Network. I'm going to agree to the license agreement. Go on next. So here, if you have a Unifi account, here's where you'd want to sign in with those credentials. If you don't have one, you could head over to unifi.ui.com, right? And you could create an account there. It's free to do. There's no cost associated. I already have one, so I'm going to enter my credentials and I'm going to sign in. Right, so it asks you to enable auto backup. That's automatically checked by default, so I'm going to leave that as it is and select next. And here it tells us we have no devices set up, and it would say that because it's basically a brand new controller. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and select next. And here we could set up our Wi-Fi network. However, I'm going to do another video that does this. Right, so I'm going to skip this for now. And here we can review our controller settings. Right, the only thing I need to change is my country. Change that to Trinidad and Tobago. Right, but we're more or less good to go. So I'm just gonna select finish and give it a few seconds. Let it do its thing. and our controller should be good to go. Alright, great. So we are seeing our Unifi dashboard. This is actually the dashboard in our controller. And if you head over the devices, there's no devices, but guys, be sure to stay tuned. In my next video, I'm going to show you how to actually adopt devices to this controller. So that's something you're not going to want to miss. So that brings me to the end of this video, guys. Remember, if you're interested in signing up for DigitalOcean, be sure to check my affiliate link in the video description below. By using this link, you get yourself free 100 US in credit towards your DigitalOcean subscription. Also, in my next up-and-coming video, I'm going to show you how to actually adopt devices to your controller. So your Unifi controller is set up now. So the next part would be to actually adopt devices, which means to have devices hosted inside of your Unifi controller. So if you're interested in seeing that, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell to be notified once that video releases. Thanks again for viewing. See you soon.